Hello, human peoples. You're listening to the podcast network of Gamefully Unemployed. To support us and gain access to great exclusive podcasts like Fox Mulder is a Maniac, Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Star Trek The Next Futurama, and our latest show, Spiel Boys, head over to patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. We do game streaming, movie nights with our patrons every Friday night, and you can even commission your own podcast about anything you want. Literally anything, within reason, and we have to do it. You are quite frankly out of excuses not to go visit patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. That's patreon.com/GAMEFULLY unemployed, which is spelled like it sounds.
Man, this fucking movie. Hi, everybody.
Hello, everyone.
My name is David Bell.
My name is Tom Ryman.
And I'm Kyle Edward Ball, which people sometimes accidentally call Bell as well. So.
Oh, nice. We're like related, but not really.
That technically, I think that makes you like some sort of cousin.
Yeah. And hey, we just watched Kwaidan. Is it Kwaidan?
I think it's Kwaidan, which I think is roughly translated as ghost stories in Japanese. I
already fucked it up. All right.
Yep. Podcast over.
Kyle, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. Very excited to have you.
It's an absolute delight to have you here. And before we get started, is there anything you need to tell the world? Anything you want to plug? Anything that's perhaps happening right now in your life that you want to talk about?
So the only big thing, so my movie Skinamarink is slowly being released in 4 markets, but I don't know which ones. So
is it like a game?
No, it's weird because so here's an example. So some distributors, I'm heavily involved, like the Mexican release of the movie. I did like 10 interviews and it was a whole thing. And then one day I just saw that we had done $60,000 in Russia. And I didn't even know we were releasing in Russia. And like, I also asked, like, I told a friend who was born in Siberia, like we released in Russia. And she's like, aren't they under sanctions? And I'm like, I don't think it counts for weirdo movies. Like it's like for finance and weapons and like, I think movies, or maybe we are, maybe I'm going to get in trouble.
I don't know if Skinamarink is going to tip the balance over there.
Yeah. And then another thing, we, as of August 4th in the United States, are also, on top of being on Shudder and AMC Plus and Video On Demand, we're now on Hulu.
Oh, okay.
Oh, excellent.
So I might be getting some mouse money.
Oh, wonderful. Skinamarink, a Disney film.
Yeah.
I can see this film, weirdly enough, translating to different countries because it's not.
Yeah,
it's limited dialogue
heavy.
Yeah, and it's kind of it's kind of based on kind of universal vibes. I would say that's a weird way to put it, but like,
it's I was likening it to Dave. I've said this to him 100 times already, probably, but it feels like it's the feeling I had when I was a little kid and I was up later than I was supposed to be. Like I knew I wasn't supposed to be awake at that hour. It's like that vibe. It's so
that
perfect
feeling, totally. Yeah.
And honestly, I feel like it has a lot in common with the movie that we just watched today, honestly.
Oh, totally. Like Kwaidan, so J-horror in general, I've always really liked because it's so atmosphere driven.
Yeah.
And Kwaidan, like I told you guys, I've seen it 30 times, like about 30 times. But some of that's cheating because I will occasionally use it as my go to bed movie. So
I had that on my notes. This is a background go to sleep movie for sure.
Yeah. So in actuality, I've seen the first hour and 15 minutes, probably over 30 times.
Right.
I've seen the movie to completion maybe only 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, that checks out. Yeah, it's a 3 hour long movie. At least is that the director's cut? I think I saw it listed as 2 hours as well.
Because there's the complete Japanese and now Criterion version, which is 3 hours. And when it was released in the 60s, there was a shortened American version that I think, weirdly enough, I think they cut one of the segments, and it was woman in the snow segment, I believe, which is maybe the best segment. And on top of that was even like that was redone for the Tales of the Dark Side movie.
I was so excited to tell you that. I was watching. I'm like, this is the James Remar gargoyle story from Tales from the Dark Side.
Apparently, it's based off an old story because I was watching with my partner, and they identified it as well from like old folklore. Like, there's different versions of it and stuff like that. So I thought that was really cool because they were saying that to me, and then Tom, you were texting me like, this is from Tales from the Dark Side. I'm like, yeah, that would be where Tom identifies it from.
That's where my brain goes.
That's where I first saw it too, because as a kid I saw Tales of the Dark Side, and also that weirdly I saw it when I was like 4 or 5, and that was where I learned about the concept of trick photography, because in, I think that segment in Tales of the Dark Side, or maybe it's another one, someone gets decapitated by the gargoyle. And I asked my mom how they did that, and she explained the concept of trick photography to me. So,
oh, that's really cool. When was the first time you saw this film?
I think I was, I don't know, maybe 13, 14.
Really?
Like,
how did you find it? Yeah.
It was a DVD, like an early Criterion DVD at a video store we had in Edmonton called Alternative Video Spot, which was like the cool video store.
Oh yeah.
That I had to like take multiple buses to get to, and like, so yeah, I would have been a teenager when I saw it. So.
That checks out. I felt like watching it, I was like, how did I not see this earlier in my life? Because it's not that it's a pretty, like, it was nominated for best international,
best foreign language film at the Academy Awards. It didn't win, and I think the version that most Academy of voters would have seen would have been the one that cut the Woman in the Snow segment.
Right?
Yeah, like,
that's a real shame. Yeah. For people,
if anything, I might have trimmed some out of Huichi the Earless.
Yeah, like
that's like a full 90-minute sequence.
I know, like that's almost a feature in itself. Yeah,
it was hard because watching it, knowing that there was a 2-hour version, I was wondering, like, did they just cut one out, like where you can't really trim each story down? Because, like you were saying, I was
being facetious.
Oh yeah, no, no, yeah, for sure. But the beauty, it really is the kind of the slow burn of it all. I think actually the first one was my favorite. For people listening who hasn't seen the movie, this is an anthology, a horror anthology a series of ghost stories. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's done. It's really, really dreamlike. It takes its time. It's all done on sets, which I thought was really cool. It reminded me of that.
There's a handful of location ones, but most of it's on sets.
Yeah, it's like a combo a bit.
It's like this super heightened reality. It reminded me of the 80s horror movie, Company of Wolves. Kind of does a similar thing. And like it does a similar sort of thing where it uses the really surreal sets that are supposed to be these huge outdoor locations. And you can tell they're sets, but it's like you're supposed to be able to tell because it's like part of the heightened reality of it.
Technicolor CinemaScope.
Yeah, it gave me
precisely
Houseu vibes. Not really in the way it was made, but the sets.
Yeah.
If you've seen Unwelcome, that was a newer film, has that dreamy horror look. It's a rare look. I feel like it's kind of more in older horror films like this, where like this film isn't. It didn't, at least like you mentioned, it's something to fall asleep to. Like it's like dreamy and like. It's more creepy and less than it's trying to like terrify you. I wouldn't say it's of the time because it's telling these very simple ghost stories. You know, most of them are very straightforward, but it's just telling them in such a extremely beautiful way that it's like the slow burn and the vibes of it all just make it a gorgeous movie and a really like calming watch.
And
like I felt
So pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that it's absolutely gorgeous. I love that it takes its time with each vignette, and I think sort of like maybe this is just like my modern movie brain, but like when I understanding that it was an anthology helped helped me not be intimidated by the runtime, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
I much prefer that. Where
Yeah.
if it's a 3 hour film and you get like through a half hour and you're like, man, so this for 2.5 more hours.
Yeah.
Shit. This one, if you're like, this one isn't my cup of tea. Well, there'll be another in 40
Uh,
minutes or so. I do like that they didn't like the lengths were varying, where you didn't quite know when each one would end. Like there wasn't and it's what is it, 4 stories total?
four.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I'll go so it's I think it's called The Black Hair,
Yep, that's the first one.
The Woman in the Snow, Ho-Chi the Earless, and A Cup of Tea. And so there's kind of an interesting story behind it too, because obviously, so they're all these old Japanese folklore stories that were compiled into a book by a Dutch explorer, like a Dutch guy, or not
Huh.
Dutch explorer, just some Dutch guy compiled all these stories into a book, released the book in the West, and I think Japan as well. And then they were recycled back into this movie. So it's this weird retelling of a retelling of a translation of a translation, right?
Right.
Because obviously these stories are known in Japan, but an outsider came in and wrote them all down. So
So they were like, yeah, it's like a copy of a copy. They
yeah,
transferred it over. I wonder now it makes me want to look at the original stories for sure.
I think it was all just word of mouth back in the day because they're folk tales, right? So
Yeah.
and there's different versions too, I would assume, right? So yeah.
Yeah, a lot of it feel like very basic, like J horror. There's a lot of themes that are in this that run throughout that into the 90s and stuff,
Yeah.
where
There
it's almost like horror 101 with the stories. Like the first one is what was that one? The Black Hair.
Black hair.
It's
Yeah.
it's
yeah.
a guy who leaves his wife to find a samurai, right? To leave his
They're all like campfire tales, right?
Yeah,
Basically,
yeah,
because
they're
like the
all
first
Yeah.
one is it's a scorned lover. He
yeah.
abandons his wife because they're too
Because
poor. He's like, yeah,
yeah, he doesn't want to live in poverty. And then, so he, with his standing as a samurai, marries a noble woman who he hates and doesn't love. And yeah,
Yeah, he's got to ride horses all day apparently,
yeah.
shoot at things.
yeah.
Seems like a real dull job most of the time.
He does. It was really funny because he's like bored while doing it. He's
Right,
thinking
yeah.
of his.
He's like thinking about his
He's just at the
ex-wife
office,
shooting
just
arrows.
shooting
Yeah.
arrows. No, I
Yeah.
think that was my favorite solely because of the sound throughout that creaking sound.
Yeah.
It
Of
was
the
the
loom
most.
that she, yeah,
Yeah, it was probably, and then it felt like it was like her bones, the decay of the house. Like the
yeah.
creaking kept taking on new
Yeah.
meanings,
There's
and
a
it was just such a cool sound design throughout that one
So
specifically.
speaking of sound design, because I listened to the commentary track one time, I think there's a Criterion commentary done by like a film critic or historian. And I never really noticed this until someone pointed it out. The sound design is so interesting because there's long blocks where there's the sound design is completely unrealistic. So it's only dialogue and then another sound effect. So there'll be parts where people open and close doors and you don't hear it. So
Yeah.
they're incredibly minimalist. And with the sound design, there's never more than two pieces of sound at a time. Like it's incredibly like there's one part where again the riding the horses part where they have actual sound. Like, okay, this is all the sound of the setting, and that's it. Like everything else is like
Yeah, there's no
minimal.
background sounds at all.
Yeah.
it's really noticeable in the third segment during the naval battle when it's like this huge epic action sequence and
Yeah.
there's mostly no sound. It's
Yeah.
just
Yeah. It's just the guy singing.
yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, that's you do a similar thing in Skinamarink.
Yeah,
Yeah, but in Skinamarink, it's there's always hiss and hum and always like this. But I'm not gonna lie, I was consciously thinking like, okay, imagine you're making Kwaidan when I was doing the sound for mine, like because it just more of the mindset of how can you be interesting with the sound design? Like, you're not doing film school 101. Okay, a door opens, put a door opening there. Yeah,
yeah, and
it's
it
more the
works really well.
philosophy,
It
right?
works great for horror. Like it's weird
Right.
because
Mm.
this movie, I definitely like the sound design. Reminded me of Skinamarink. It also reminded me of like Evil Dead, where they do the creaking as well, where it's making the sound design really alien and something that'll
Right. It's like
stand out.
the transposition of it, like you said, it's a not the correct sound, and it's like it may be like a normal sound, but it's like
Mhm.
drilled into in such a way that, or rather, where it keeps repeating itself. So it creates like it's almost its own motif of creepiness at that point, even though it's like it can be a regular sound, like in this thing with like the loom just clacking as he
Yeah.
thinks about his wife working at the weaving the cloth.
Yeah,
Did
and
you
oh, go on.
did I actually there's a jump scare for me in this movie, but like just the first time I saw it when I was a kid, um I just was I don't know, like, and it's kind of obvious, but like the part at the end of the cup of tea where you see the publisher in the
Oh
tea, that made me
man,
jump. And there's no sound,
Yeah.
right?
that's probably the most like modern horror sensibilities
Yeah.
in this. And did you jump at when the publisher first reacts to it? Like,
No, I jumped when you see him in the tea.
oh,
Like when
okay,
you
yeah,
see that woman see him in the tea and run, and you don't see her seeing it, you just see her reacting to something, and then you see his face in the tea, and it's so simple, right? I don't
yeah.
know, like, just was not expecting it.
This does it a
Yeah.
few times, where the jump is kind of at the person jumping themselves,
It's the
right?
reaction
Yeah.
more of anything. So it's
Yeah,
especially with the in the cup of tea one where you see her reaction and then you see his reaction and it's almost worse. Like it's so extreme. So it's like my mind is like bracing myself for what it is, and it's so not what I would like. The image is not what I was expecting at all, which adds
Yeah.
to like like when you see it,
it's
it's like
definitely
it's his whole ass body inside this thing.
yeah, it's the
Yeah.
most haunting one.
It's
That's
really
a
wild. Yeah.
that was a really weird story. I know we're jumping around, but like the cup of tea one felt like a Twilight Zone episode at first.
Yeah.
I think there
It's
is
a
not Twilight Zone. There's a Outer Limits. Is that the other one? The
yeah.
where the
Yeah.
guy keeps seeing the person in a reflection, and it's just like the opening offer is this weirdo keeps showing up in his tea reflection, and this guy is
Yeah.
just like not into it. And I thought
And
that was
the point of the cup of tea too was that some stories they just are not finished, right? And that was
right.
the kind of interesting motif is we see this story. So it opens with a publisher, then we see the story that he's writing or retelling, and then at some point it ends awkwardly and it's like, okay, so that's where the story ended, and we come back to the publisher who's disappeared. And yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, because the
Mm.
basic story is the guy haunted by this weird dude sneering at him from the tea.
Well, it's kind of a
Yeah.
shit-eating grin too, which
Yeah,
made
it
it sort
is.
of
And
Yeah.
then he breaks the cup, and then the guy shows up like, "Hey, what the hell, man?
yeah.
You
Why'd you
broke
Yeah.
drink
you."
me? That's
Yeah,
messed up.
yeah. Oh yeah, he drinks him first.
Yeah.
Right. And then he just sort of haunts him with three other dudes. And then
Yeah. His henchman.
yeah. It's a very interesting take on ghosts. The like in this, and I think in most of the stories, the ghosts are fairly accessible. If that makes sense, it reminded me of the movie Ghost Story, the one with Fred Astaire,
Mhm.
where
it's
the ghost is sort of like just hanging out a lot of the time. There's
Yeah.
that element where it's like that's what I liked about the first one.
The Ghost
'cause
and
he-
Ghost Story has a job
Yeah, she holds
in
down
an
a job.
apartment.
But like the black hair it reminded me of that, where he hangs out with her for a bit, whether
Yeah,
it's
a
his
whole night.
fantasy or not. And it's that like adds to the extra creepiness for me, is that idea that he's just been walking around this like a
And
completely
then,
abandoned house without realizing it.
Going
Uh,
to bed with a corpse.
yeah, That's why that one really resonated with me, because it's a very simple one, but I always find that basic concept very creepy.
They stick with it. Like they stick with the reveal. Like the reveal keeps unraveling because it seems like he is then trapped there and starts to rapidly age. I think I'm interpreting that correctly. And so does her corpse.
Yeah, he does. He
sure
gets
does.
Old.
They built their house on the beach that makes you old.
Yeah.
But so it's like his reaction is like sustained for like a couple of minutes, and he keeps getting old, and the makeup is like really extreme and intense, and then the body keeps getting worse. It's just they just live in that horrible reveal for so long that I think I agree with you, Dave. That was either that one or The Woman in the Snow are the ones that really stuck with me.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. That's the one that stuck with me, but there's definitely like Hyochi the Earless. That's like, I think that's the one that's like kind of a masterpiece, right? In every in every way, shape, or form. Just it's so epic, and the first opening battle sequences, the music is gorgeous, and then it does that same thing where he thinks he's playing at this like temple, and it's just a cemetery, which is
creepy.
Yeah,
and the reveal of when they paint all, and that's just, it's so beautiful. All the text on his, like, that's such a powerful image. And then when the ghost comes to retrieve him and he can't see him, and then you see, but he can see his ears, and you're like, oh, they forgot to paint his fucking ear.
Damn ears.
I'm trying to say, when they were painting him, I was like, the ears, get the ears. Get the ears, and they didn't. I was just like, shit.
That I don't want to sound stupid, like that. When I first saw it, even though I knew the name of it too, like you'd think you would click, and I just didn't click, and I was genuinely like, oh,
right. Sometimes
it was the same for me. Like when it gets that scene, and the ghost shows up, and he looks over, and you can see him. He's kind of like predatored out, except he's got two big ears that are just totally visible. I was like, fuck,
the earless, right?
And he has a samurai sword. So I thought, oh, well, he's going to lop those off. Nope.
He rips them off.
It's like such an intense, what a great decision for a horror movie. Just like,
I just like that he's also like, oh man, my boss is going to yell at me if I don't bring him something.
These ears just to like prove that I did my job. And then he laboriously rips his ears off for like a full minute.
He's such a sympathetic character too. He's this blind monk, right? Like, he can play whatever instrument that is so beautifully, and he can recite this specific historical event so well that the ghosts,
the ghosts are kind of, they seem bored, right?
They want to hear him play the song of the battle they died in.
Yeah.
Basically.
It is a very haunting instrument. I forget what that instrument's called, but like, it's beautiful, and it also reminds me of the sound design throughout. Like, it's kind of unnerving. It's like these plucking sounds. And the way he's singing and telling the story is also like beautiful and unnerving. It's just the perfect combination, which I'm sure there's like, a lot of cultural background to it, but just like using it for this movie, it kind of settles into that story really well. That is probably the best one, because it begins with him singing it, and you don't even know who's singing it, right? You're just watching the battle with the singing, and you don't even think of like why that singing might matter. It reminded me a little bit of The Fog, because it has that like ghost pirate feel, right? And it's got that same vibe as like the mist coming out and stuff like that. Yeah, I think that one, how long was that? Was it like
90 minutes?
90 minutes? Yeah, that really does feel like it's its own movie.
I think it was about, because last night I just rewatched that segment and the tea segment, because I've seen the first two segments again 30 times, right? So I think the tea and Hochi the Earless are 90 minutes total. So I think it's about an hour and 5 or 70 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, that felt like it could have been in another world, its own movie. because it is like it's such a I don't know. It's haunting and it's also weird and it's fun at the same time. And it
Yeah.
had the most. It felt like it had the most developed characters too.
Hmm.
Yeah, his two little goofball sidekicks at the
Yeah,
temple.
they're doing
Yeah,
bits.
like these two like almost comedic relief characters, right?
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
an unexpected. It's not like a joke fest, but there's an unexpected amount of comedy in this movie for me. Like
Yeah.
there's some genuinely funny jokes.
Yeah, and they're like kind of dicks. One of them is kind of a dick to him, like oh, like how do you sleep with a woman if you can't see? Like he's
right.
but and the other one is like nice to him, and yeah,
How I mean, there's no way to answer this. I'm wondering how this movie was received when it came out. Like, I know it was well liked. It was, nominated and all that. But like, it
mhm.
it, it feels weird by today's standards. Like especially with the way modern horror goes. But I'm just wondering, like, how did it stand out? You think in the '60s? But I'm not even sure
Yeah.
anybody can answer that question right now.
Yeah,
Um,
it's really hard to reverse like and a lot of things through the grapevine get um weirdly misinterpreted. Like I've always heard this recurring thing that when Alien came out, it wasn't well received critically. And
right.
if you go back, that's not the case. It's just
Oh,
it wasn't considered a masterpiece at the time. But like a lot of critics quite liked Alien. Like so a lot of times it's hard to gauge how a movie is received because we have less information to go off of. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I just thinking of like the style of this film. I'm trying to sort of weed out what is the sensibilities of the time versus what is
Mhm.
like very unique to because I'm trying to think of what horror was like back at this point.
It was a lot of like gothic like women. It was either monster movies or women, spooky woman in the castle with
Right.
candles,
it's a lot
right?
of
Like
Hammer
that.
films at this time.
Yeah, yeah. It's Hamer?
I believe so.
I've
It's
been
not
calling it
Hammer.
Hammer.
Hammer. I'm not sure. It's one of the two,
I think
That's
Hammer's the
an
cooler name to have.
obviously.
that's another like Kyle falls asleep to this movie is the Hammer horror of Dracula.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that one.
It's really good. It's and I know like there's like a bajillion different Draculas. Like I get
Right.
like that's but the British horror of Dracula with everyone Peter Cushing, um, and
Christopher Lee.
everyone else who's
Yeah.
in Lord of the Rings and stuff like
Yeah.
just all these British guys, right? Like right.
Showing up in Lord of the Rings like, Dracula. I
Yeah,
remember
I
you.
think I think the first Alfred is in it, Michael Goff.
Oh, no
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah, he was in a lot of those old horror movies, which
That
is I
checks
think that's
out.
why Tim Burton made him Alfred because
Yeah.
that's what
Right.
he put
It's
And
Vincent Price and Edward Scissorhands.
and like a lot of gorgeous British baddies in it too.
yeah. It's man, Christopher Lee. We watched what is it, Howling 2? That's the one he's in, right?
Yeah, my sister's a werewolf. What is it?
Have you seen that one? It's just funny how like I think Christopher Lee is like, he's fancy, very respectable and actor, but he's a horror actor. So it's
Right.
like, oh,
Yeah.
he'll do the schlock. He doesn't care.
Yeah, he did lots of schlock.
Yeah.
He was like
Yeah.
Denzel.
Yeah. We haven't talked about the woman of the snow at all. That is
This one,
that is definitely the most memorable one.
I love the lighting in it.
Oh yeah, they do. Well, I like the lighting throughout. Like they do
Throughout,
that.
yeah, they really nail the lighting.
And
It's
the
like
eyes in the sky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's like lighting changes, like it's a stage show
like
sometimes.
like a theatrical production.
Yeah, where like they'll do spotlighting on certain people and stuff like that. Yeah, the woman in the snow is a guy who's out in the snow, and him and a buddy encounter this woman who I don't know.
He's the apprentice to the woodcutter.
Right.
So he's a boy of 18 who but like I googled the actor because I think he's kind of handsome, and in reality he was 33.
Oh yeah, you can tell he's a grown ass man.
Yeah.
But so he's the apprentice to the woodcutter. He's going to learn how to cut wood, and they go out cutting wood, and a snowstorm befalls them. So they find a shack of some sort to seek shelter, and the old man succumbs to the cold, which is of course interpreted as the woman in the snow, so like a snow demon of some sort.
Right.
Yeah.
And yeah, and she kills the guy, and then she's just like, snitches get stitches to this other guy.
Yes.
She's just like, don't fucking tell anybody about this.
Kind of takes pity on him because,
Yeah.
okay, well, he was old, but and she specifically says you're handsome.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And you're so young. I'll spare you. Bye. And then, yeah.
She spares him because he's a snack.
Yeah.
And then she marries him.
And then she marries him.
She's like, I'll circle back around to that guy.
She's like the perfect wife in every way, shape, and form. Like you see those those women in the town doing laundry talking about her, and they're like, oh, she's perfect. Even her mother-in-law loves her. And like, mother-in-laws, they never liked the job. But even,
and they're like, she never ages. And it's like, that's ghost red flag.
Right. To be clear, they haven't. The film does not specifically tell us at this point that the snow demon and his wife are the same person, but you can kind of tell.
And they also, the old women do say, wow, it's like, have you ever seen that movie about the beach where everyone gets old? It's like she went to the opposite beach, or not the opposite beach, but like a halfway beach where she doesn't get like younger or anything. She just stay like, it was weird that so prescient that they knew about the beach where you get old. And a woman says, imagine a beach between a Benjamin Button beach and a beach that makes you old. She's on that beach.
Right. The movie is called Youngish.
It took me out of the movie. They had that whole...
It is weird.
They really paused the movie to talk about the beach that makes you old. It factors into each of the 4 ghost tales.
Yeah. They mentioned Shyamalan by name.
Yeah, he shows up. He's the ghost.
Airbender's briefly referenced.
And that one woman's like, you know what? She's like, I'm gonna say it. Like, he gave us Sixth Sense. He gave us Unbreakable.
Oh yeah.
And I really like the Signs. And I'm like, this now, now looking back, I understand why for the American release they cut that out.
Yeah, all the
that segment out of the
Probably pretty confusing. They didn't want to alarm people.
Yeah.
They've seen 70 years in the future.
No, just Shyamalan. I like the idea
Shyamalan.
of just seeing Shyamalan in the future.
Right, we've seen 35 years into the future and found Shyamalan.
Yeah, we just watched. And it takes some pretty big swings, but a lot of them are good. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then basically they have kids. He makes her sandals. And then he's like, I got the wildest story for you.
And the final shot, it's so powerful. He leaves her sandals in the snow.
So good.
And it ends with the sandals it's poetry.
Yeah.
The whole fucking thing is it's like, it's perfect. I think Kwaidan is kind of perfect.
I think so, yeah.
I would tend to agree. Certainly as a film and as a piece of art, definitely.
Yeah, and for what it's
I do love that last image, yeah. Just leaving the sandals for her in the snow and then they disappear. It's a real, it's not as harsh as the gargoyle version of Tales from the Dark Side.
Yeah.
I gotta watch. You promised you wouldn't say, and she turns into a gargoyle, and all their kids turn into fucking that.
Apparently, the original version also she kills him. I like this version better, where she's just
she spares him because she genuinely loves him and the kids. And she is leaving. And she's like, if I ever hear anything about you missing a soccer practice or a birthday, I'm coming back here and I'm gonna fucking murder you.
We're going to ghost court.
I thought it was vaguely implied that the kids went with her.
No, she says
they're going to settle it in ghost court. They're going to go to ghost court.
She does tell him, if I hear anything about you not being good to these kids, I'm going to come back and murder you.
Which is funny because you'd think he'd be like, okay, hold on. Follow-up question. Do you mean like not let them eat candy or like I gotta be their parent, right?
Right. She does say don't give them anything to complain about, I think is how she phrases it. And it's like
good. So now is this like that Twilight Zone where the kid can do whatever he wants?
Right.
Like that.
If I make him take a bath, is my head gonna get blown up by ghost magic?
Instructions unclear. No, I'm a big fan of vibes. I when I was a kid, like my favorite Disney thing was Fantasia because it's just all fucking vibes.
Samesies.
Yeah.
That's an experimental film. It really is. It is. Yeah.
As a teenager, I had a new appreciation for it as I discovered weed. Like it's And then like 2001 Space Odyssey, I really like. I always like
my favorite film.
Really?
100%. I saw that when I was like
saying that
8 or 9. And ever since then, I was a fucking weird kid. Like that is my favorite. That is the greatest film, period.
I fucking love that film. I love the hauntingness of that general unknown. I love how it treats aliens. Like it treats aliens as scary. Like a paranormal entity. It's scary. And I just love how long and beautiful it is,
I was a slow adopter of 2000. It took me a long time to come around in 2001. Like I always liked the stuff in the beginning with the first, when they find the first monolith in space. And I liked the HAL stuff, but like conceptually it just sort of like confused me. But like as the older I got, I was watching it really settling into the vibes.
It's a more mature film. It can be a while to get into. Rock Hudson apparently hated it. He was at the Los Angeles premiere, and it was noted that Rock Hudson like angrily stood up about an hour and a half in the screening and shouted, "Does anyone know what's going on?" and stormed out.
That's great.
To go see his roommate. I guess I don't know.
I heard it didn't do well at first. Like I heard it found like a hippie crowd after
it was mixed, but it was a box office smash. And but the reaction to it then was fairly similar to it as now, because there's a lot of people still that it's like, what is this? But it's magic,
I like it's a few stories, right? The HAL stuff is kind of its own thing.
Again,
in a way,
it's kind of a series of vignettes,
but it all ties back to the same kind of themes that we can, and it's all about the monolith, right?
It's just interesting how like I don't know, there's a lot of long movies recently that I've been like, it's way too long, but like it's kind of some of my favorite. Like Dr. Zhivago is another film that I love, and it's so much, that's also kind of vibes. Like it's just a very slow love story that takes place in a long amount of time. And then this one gave me that where, it's like you put it on before bed. It's so dreamy. And I'm trying to like figure out why there are some long movies that I reject for being long. Well, some of my favorite ones are like this. Like I think it's this one. It's the anthology aspect too. And it's the fact that it's long because it takes its time, not because it's trying to cram a lot of stuff in it, if that makes sense.
The stories are all real simple. There's not,
And it's a little bit of like...
Did you all see Oppenheimer?
Yeah.
Yes.
Did you see it in 70 mil?
I saw it at the Chinese theater in 70 mil.
Wow.
Yeah, I was like, fuck it. I'll deal with the crowds. I'll go do that. I really enjoyed it. Did you see it?
Yeah, I saw it. I saw it Barbieheimer weekend.
Nice.
One of our party did do full Barbieheimer, but I just did Oppenheimer in 70 mil. And did your theater get hot? Because there was a weird heat thing, because I don't think they'd ever accommodated for back-to-back sold out 3-hour screenings on a full day. So I felt like the cumulative body heat plus the heat of it was film in the theater.
The projector,
like it got hot, and the air conditioning was on full blast, and
The theaters must have been terrified dealing with that stuff.
Did you see the size of the reels?
Yeah, at the Chinese theater, I'm pretty sure there was a new booth they put up.
Yeah, they set up a
projector,
right? Yeah.
And like I just years of digital projectors. I'm imagining so many projectionists just having panic attacks over this shit.
Oh my god!
They probably brought in like special people. I don't know.
There was one IMAX theater in Ontario, I think in Peterborough, Ontario, where they had to fly someone in from Los Angeles.
Oh man!
Yeah,
the specialist in there to operate this film.
To Oppenheimer the film, yeah.
A film that's just a thriller, a biopic political thriller, which I enjoyed a lot. I just still think same. I liked seeing it in 70 million IMAX, but it's very funny to me that he's like, this is how it has to be seen. And everybody was like, all right, let's go see it. And then it's like, man, it's a lot of hearings, isn't it? And they're like, yeah, but it's huge. And it's like, okay.
It's really big. Look at the size of Robert Downey Jr.
You won this, yeah.
And a lot of like, it's that guy.
Yeah.
It's that guy.
Yeah. Oh, it's a collection of that guys.
It's all, there's too many, like, it's kind of in a weird way. Yeah, like another weird complementary thing to Barbie is like that, like Oppenheimer is just so many guys.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like not just guys.
Oh, yeah. No, there's not many like
it's a real
that
sausage
ladies.
fest.
Yeah. I mean, it's sort of, I guess it makes sense for the period film that it is.
No, I'm not. I mean, literally, it's like, it's that guy. It's that guy. It's that guy. The whole time you're not saying
a name.
It's that man. It's that guy.
That
the
guy.
Whole time. I don't know how to explain.
No, I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
You would. Well, maybe you would for Casey Affleck, but for like David Krumholtz, you wouldn't be like that man. You'd say, "Oh, that's that guy." You know, the guy from the Santa Claus.
And then they're all in it very like a lot of them are in it very briefly. I didn't even notice James Urbaniak because he's in like one fucking scene.
I did not notice him at all.
Yeah,
you told me
hanging
later
out with
he's
Einstein. Yeah, wild film. I can't wait to see that again. And Barbie. Tom you haven't seen Barbie yet, right?
I haven't been able to see it yet.
Okay. Barbie was a delight. A lot of good movies coming out recently. If you haven't seen Cobweb yet,
need to see that.
Talk to Me.
I need to see that real bad.
Dying to see that. Yeah,
it's pretty good.
Theaters. Yeah.
I accidentally walked into this was after Oppenheimer. I accidentally walked into the theater. I went to the bathroom during it and walked into Oppenheimer. And so I'm like, what are you doing? Okay, like it was Emily Blunt, and I'm like, what are you doing? And I'm an idiot. And then like I got like angry. I'm like, you're in this. Okay.
All right, fine. I guess.
Yeah.
I guess
you can be in 2 movies. The audacity of some people.
Well, any other thoughts on Kwaidan?
Kwaidan.
Am I just am destined to say it wrong forever? I mean, I'm also enjoying just talking about movies. Don't get me wrong.
There's so many things I could feel like I could say about it, and have had conversations in my mind about. Oh, yeah. So I know I'll miss. Guillermo del Toro is a huge fan of it.
That checks out.
I can see that totally.
He promotes the hell out of it, and
it gave me the vibes of like this has inspired a lot of future horror films, right? Like,
yeah,
I felt like the makings of
it feels very modern in a lot
ways. Oh yeah.
In that way,
I want to live on some of those sets. Like I have this, like these Technicolor CinemaScope sets. It's like I want to live there.
Yeah.
The temple set in the Bleachy the Earless, that was amazing.
That was the one that was the best. The knowing that the snow was probably like wax, I was like, yeah, that doesn't look so bad. But that's probably it's a little cold.
I know it was styrofoam in a lot of old movies. So.
Yeah, I was thinking Dr. Zhivago, I know it was wax.
It looks like styrofoam.
Yeah,
wax.
It might have been styrofoam. Dr. Zhivago has this a crazy set where they had to do like all 4 seasons. And the way they did it is for fall, they just like painted all the leaves by hand for winter. They just sprayed it all, and it's an outdoor set. That movie, like low key, did a lot of messed up stuff. I'm pretty sure an old woman got hit by a train making that movie, and they started a tire fire at one point to do like a distant. But they were just doing like these over the top like wild things to do the set. So I was thinking wax just because that's how they did it in Dr. Zhivago, but it could very well be styrofoam. I feel like that's too sticky.
I would feel like, but wouldn't that melt because of the lights?
Right, that's
like
true.
Those sets get hot. I don't know.
I feel like there's multiple ways to do it.
Hearing stories about how things were made in the 50s and 60s, it's like how were people not dying on set constantly? It's like
there's back in the 20s they shot real bullets at actors.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah. In the Public Enemy, I think, or one of the Cagney gangster films, there's a shot where he moves out of the way of a window just as bullets perforate the glass, and a moment later, and they just really shot bullets at James Cagney.
Ridiculous.
So the grapefruit Cagney scene. In one of the Cagneys, I don't know whether it's Public Enemy, but in one of the Cagney gangster movies, there's an infamous scene where he's eating over breakfast with his mistress or I don't know.
I've heard of this, but I can't.
And he takes a grapefruit and smacks her with it and does that. And it's still kind of a shocking. It's just one of those, I can't believe you did. It's so I found out apparently that scene was Cagney and the actress did it as a joke.
And she was in on it?
Yeah, they did it originally in the script. He was, I don't know, supposed to I don't know, probably smack her or something. And they did it as everyone's going to laugh at this. And they did it and no one laughed.
This will be real.
It's one of those things where it's okay, on paper, this is kind of funny, but in actuality, it's really disturbing seeing, right? So
it's like a pie in the face where it's that's fun, and then if you actually smack someone with a pie, it's it's hot and it hurts.
If you see it, it looks so violent. Yeah, I was reading while you were retelling the story. Apparently, he was originally supposed to throw an omelet in her face.
Oh,
Jesus!
And he's like, "Well, that's too messy. I'll just use a grapefruit."
Weird.
And then I noticed, I saw this one of the golden age of the Simpsons episodes, season 2 or 3. Bart does it to someone as in I don't know. I think it's an imagining, Homer's imagining, if I'm a bad parent, he'll be a gangster or something. And Bart Cagney's someone with a grapefruit. So
I knew I had seen it in a cartoon, and I was
I think it's
Family Guy. I couldn't remember.
It's either the episode where they think Skinner's been killed, or it's the episode.
No, that feels correct.
I think it's that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Man, movies are great. Yeah.
They're back, Dave.
They're back. They're back.
The movies
they
are
really
back.
are. I've been seeing just fucking so many good movies lately. It's great.
Yeah, this one included. I had never even heard of this film before, so thank you so much for bringing it.
Yeah, thank you.
It's one of those, and it's one of the it's always on Criterion channel, it's permanently on. They don't circulate it out. So
I'm gonna have to get a good Blu-ray of this one. If it's
I want to know everything
one.
About how they made it. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. You want to plug anything right here at the end again?
Skinamarink available on obviously Shudder, AMC Plus, Blu-ray. We actually charted in the Blu-ray charts in America and the UK the weeks we came out, so that was cool.
That's cool. I saw those VHSs. That's really cool.
They sold out like that.
Of course.
Of course.
And I actually just got, because they also did a VHS of the short film that's based on Heck and a few of my early Nightmare videos. They did a VHS of that. And I just got payment for it, and so I just got, because they only did 100 copies, right? So I got $600 for it, $600 in Canadian dollars,
Right.
and that was actually like the full budget for that short film. Heck, so I've actually like fully recouped the
You're making
expenses
money
of,
back.
yeah,
Nice.
kind of poetic.
Congratulations.
So we're on Hulu, and I found out. So is there ads on Hulu?
It depends.
I
It's a
think some
complicated.
tiers. I don't even know anymore.
I don't know. It depends on the tier. Yeah.
I think we weirdly don't have Hulu in Canada.
Really?
No, like we don't have Hulu. The only ones we don't have are, we don't have Hulu, we don't have Screenbox, and we don't have HBO Max. But that's because everything HBO is licensed to this other service in Canada called Crave, which is owned by like this giant media conglomerate. So
you have access. You can watch The Wire. You can sit and watch The Wire.
We get HBO in Canada, but it's not, we have no Max, but like every other streaming service we get in Canada. So like Netflix, Shudder, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah. Okay. That's
sweet.
Cool.
But
yeah.
no Hulu.
And you have the milk and bags, and you have coin dollars, which when I was in Canada, that was my favorite thing.
That's the milk and bags, I think, is an Eastern Canadian thing, because in Alberta, I never really saw that.
Okay, yeah, I've been to Montreal, and there was all the milk and bags there, and
I love Montreal so much.
Montreal was great.
If I was to live in any other Canadian city, it would be Montreal.
I love that, like, you can go around Montreal without leaving the indoors. Does that make sense? Where it's all
the underground,
the underground and
that
the
path, I think it's called. Yeah, and we have, so that was a big thing in the 70s and 80s, and it fit like a glove in Canadian cities because of the climate, right?
Yeah.
And so Toronto and Montreal have these giant ones, but also even here in Edmonton, we have a fairly substantive underground network. And now it caused problems in certain cities too, because it was seen as, okay, well, particularly in a city like Edmonton, it took away from the vibrancy of the street, right? So it's a lot of our downtown was underdeveloped because of it, because people were just underground. And so now they're seen as kind of bad. Like they try to avoid doing pedway systems because they're seen as a problem. So, yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah. When I lived briefly in Orlando, Florida, and like that has downtown Disney and the mouse, and so downtown Orlando was just a ghost town because it was like, what, no one's going here, right? So like,
anyone here is just lost.
Yeah, exactly. Great punk scene though, because of course there was,
and very big LGBTQ community, right? Because like a lot of gay men work at theme parks, right? Like it's so.
I think so. I think more Key Westy, probably, like a little lower. The saying with Florida is the more north you go, the more south you go, meaning that it's more progressive near like the bottom of Florida, which I spent less time in.
But any major city is fairly.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
absolutely. So. Cool. Well, thank you for being on.
Yeah, thank you so much again.
Thank you for introducing this movie to us. It was a delight. I will real quick plug me and Tom's Patreon, patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. For everybody listening, go check it out. We have exclusive podcasts on there. We watch movies every Friday night with our patrons as well. Check that out.
Yeah, we also have a store. Head over to gamefullyunemployed.com. You can find a link to our Teespring store. We have all kinds of cool original artwork and designs. You get on t-shirts, mugs, stickers, posters, all sorts of things. Slap your ghostly little peepers on that.
Yeah.
If you
watch out for ghosts.
Yeah, watch out for ghosts. Leave them your sandals.
Like a lot of ghost stories, it's just like, don't mess with women because they'll become, or they could be ghosts. Right?
Yeah,
that's the lesson. Did I get the right lesson?
That is kind of the theme. Like,
there's a I think it's a bit of pride, I think, in a lot of the stories, but
mainly don't mess with women because they could be
but
ghosts.
primarily,
They
yeah,
could be ghosts.
Yeah,
could be
you
snow
never,
demons.
You never know.